With another Super Bowl ready to go on Sunday, we decided let's go back to one of the most memorable halftime performances of all time. Well, at least infamous, maybe I should say. Jackson, Justin Timberlake, 2004, wardrobe malfunction. That was when the term was coined. Nipplegate, also what it's called. But this story includes TiVo, the beginning of YouTube, confidentiality agreements, and much more. One of the biggest moments in TV history, and it became right at the beginning of the internet age and search terms. It's a really remarkable story. Pretty fascinating now looking back where we are compared to how much anger there was in that moment. So we're going to take you back to that night in Houston and talk about whether or not this was intentional.
This is Distant Replay.
As we get for another Super Bowl, we had to think back to some of the most memorable performance at halftime. And when you do that, you go no further than the wardrobe malfunction. So let's jump into this because we wanted to dedicate a little bit of time to go back. We're talking about Distant Replay. This is one of those things that everybody still remembers because it was kind of a game changer in terms of media, in terms of kind of culture. A lot of things were impacted by this one brief, literally brief 1 or 2 second moment on television that just really kind of changed the game and really changed the trajectory of a couple of people's careers. So let's go back, Mike. It was Super Bowl XXXVIII. It was in Houston, Reliant Stadium, February 1st, 2004. So I guess the big question with this is, was it intentional, right? So let's discuss some of the details, what we know, what we've heard over the years, what people have said about this, because it's very interesting. So just the basic details of what happened, right? I think that's where you kind of start. Performance that involved a lot of different people, right? But the main two people involved here, Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson. It was kind of Justin bringing it home, right? Halftime show, finishing up the performance. Janet kind of had already performed a song or two, stayed on stage. They had worked together, so they were pretty comfortable together. And then the very end, To Rock Your Body, the song that you probably used to rock, Mike, in your car back in the day in high school. That song finishes up with I'll Have You Naked by the end of the song, and then boom, the wardrobe malfunction, the phrase that was created on this event.
Yeah, of course. Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake would claim it was a wardrobe malfunction. Hard to really claim that, though, when the last line is going to have you naked by the end of this song, and then you make the person standing next to you naked.
Right. Seems like that's pretty intentional. So what we've heard through the years since, right, is that they had some discussions, the producers producing this halftime, Viacom's MTV was producing this. I guess they had kind of talked about the possibility of maybe ripping off like a skirt, but having something on underneath. Like a couple, I think from what I could tell, it sounds like a couple different iterations of what could happen here. But eventually everybody claims that they decided, hey, we're not going to go that direction.
That's what everyone's going to claim, afterwards once they got all the blowback, because that's an integral part of this story is the media phenomenon that this became. I mean, you're looking at Janet Jackson at one point was the most searched term on the internet.
That's crazy.
It's absolutely insane. And the YouTube co-founder said one of the reasons he started YouTube was because he was frustrated when he couldn't find video of this incident afterwards.
That's nuts too. I did not realize that either, that he kind of credits this incident with them deciding to develop and create this video sharing website, which, man, it's nuts. And it's even crazier to think about how far that platform's come in just 15 or 16 years. That's even more nuts. But most searched event ever in one day. The other interesting thing about this too was that this is the height of TiVo. Now, I don't know how many I think TiVo is actually still around. Is it still around? I'm pretty sure it is. But most younger generation, I have no idea about TiVo because it seems like everything you watch, you can always scroll back. It's on demand. It's streaming. So you always can go forward and backwards whenever you want. But TiVo was the first digital recording device, right? So you have to throw in a VHS tape to record TV. You could just hit the button, record shows. So this TiVo was like a huge deal during this. Even the fact that they had TiVo there at the stadium, to where when this thing happened, they went back and like the NFL exec there that was kind of on stage and saw what happened with the TiVo. They had TiVo there for instant replay and like rewound the TiVo there at the stadium to see this. But TiVo even said, like, it signed up so many more people because of this, and it was the most watched, recorded, replayed television moment in their history.
Gotcha. See, you may not have known about the YouTube stuff, but I did not know about that TiVo little nugget you just threw out there. That's interesting. And I think I never had a TiVo, but I think we all knew a couple guys who had one. And it was like the coolest thing ever when it came out.
Oh, yeah. I had one that had a DVD burner in it, too. So not like for a while, like I was hammering home recordings of Seinfeld and like other shows, and I would just burn them to a DVD. You know, I'm going to have the collection. I mean, you know how many times I've watched those DVDs, Mike, through the years?
Man, look at you.
I haven't.
Cutting edge.
I haven't. I like, why would you ever need that technology now? They're going back and watching, but the DVDs to fire up when I can just go watch Seinfeld episodes wherever. Anyway, that was TiVo back in the day. Big deal, but that was integral in this process as well. So, you know, another interesting aspect of this too is like trying to figure out, was this intentional? So I read, you know, a number of different stories on this. There's been a lot of reporting, you know, because you had Janet Jackson say that, you know, it wasn't intentional. Same with Justin Timberlake, who honestly kind of got out of this unscathed compared to what Janet Jackson went through. But there was a tailor that actually worked on her wardrobe for this that actually had to sign a confidentiality agreement. So he couldn't actually say what happened when they met. That just they did meet, and you know she did come to him at some point. So I don't know, are confidentiality agreements common thing in the wardrobe business?
I wouldn't think so. And you bring up kind of the aftermath for these two. I mean, it was Justin Timberlake's song. He's the one who performed the act to make the wardrobe malfunction happen. And he got out of this sort of scot-free. It impacted her a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to get into that here, but
yeah.
I mean, she was supposed to let's look immediate. She was supposed to perform at the Grammys the following week, and they canceled her.
Yeah. And he was there, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And he initially came out and was unapologetic.
Right.
He's like, oh, I'm sorry if you're offended, blah, 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 you know, kind of blowing it off. But then someone must have got to him, and like in the coming days, he released, you know, a more formal apology about the incident. And then from then on, it sort of went away for him, and she became, you know, the story became Nipplegate, right? So it was her nipple. So I think that's how that went.
Yeah. And like, you know, she was really kind of attacked. I mean, I think everybody kind of blamed her, you know, not only that, like she had an album coming out that really was hurt by this. You know, there was, I think, Disney World had a statue that was honoring her. They brought down. There was a lot of stuff going on that people just stood back and didn't have anything to do with her at all. The other part of this too is like CBS had this huge backlash too because of what happened with the FCC. The FCC the next day or that night got an obscene amount of calls. Like the FCC chairman even said like he was watching over a friend's house, and like he would do for a Super Bowl party, right? And saw that happen and like knew immediately, I'm going to have like the worst day at the office tomorrow ever. And he said like, you know, it is what it is. Like you have to kind of take a strong stance. He was like, there's not much I could do, you know, like it was what it was. I had to just kind of go forward with what it was. Like it sounded like he didn't think it was a huge deal, but kind of where we were in culture. And I think this is kind of when things started changing, because at this time, like it's common now, like you can pull up your phone and pull up an app and see a nipple in a matter of seconds. Of course, don't visit those websites or those apps, but you know what I'm saying? Like here, this is like a huge deal. Like you don't see that kind of thing on, especially network television. This, like, it seems very common now with Netflix and all these different avenues. But at this point, I mean, there were some people that were outraged.
Oh, man, there was an FCC investigation. There were groups coming out condemning everyone involved, CBS, Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake, everyone, over an issue that probably wouldn't even be an issue now, I think we could safely say. It would be publicized, but there wouldn't be people getting canceled over it, I don't think.
No.
And, you know, I think this would have turned out better for everyone, Ben. You could tell me if you disagree. If they just said it was planned and they made a mistake.
I think now they would have. I wonder if, like, I think CBS would have had a bigger issue because they got hit with a $550,000 fine, but the courts overturned it and said that, like, the networks, they had been given insufficient notice of what constituted indecency. I mean, I would figure they would know a nipple does, but to me, like, I think like if they would have said, oh yeah, it was planned, we just wanted to kind of make a splash to the Super Bowl, the SEC probably, the courts wouldn't have probably held back. They probably have been coming out of pocket quite a bit of money. So I think from that
everything's
stance,
a legal thing. I should have thought of that.
Right. And I think from that stance, like they couldn't. But I think for like the two, I think those two, Janet Jackson and Timberlake, could have been like, hey, nobody else knew but us. Like we thought it would be
exactly
dynamic.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, I think from that side, if they would have just owned up to it, I don't think anybody would have really cared. They would probably would have forgotten about it. People would probably hated him for doing it, like the people that were upset about a nipple being on TV. But I think everybody else would have been over it in a matter of time. And you're still talking about, too, a time when news cycles weren't, a matter of seconds, right? So now today, I think if that happens, it's a big deal that night, and maybe the next day. But then in a couple of days, like, who cares, right?
Oh, yeah, this would get swallowed up by the next big story in a second. I mean, you just look at this halftime show. We had Janet Jackson bookended it, like you said, right, with performances at the beginning and end. And in between, you had P. Diddy, Nelly, and Kid Rock. So this was star-studded.
Yeah,
but this
solid.
stole the show, and it dominated everything that was going on, it seemed like, for the next, like, at least month.
Yeah, and it overshadowed the entire game. It was Patriots and Panthers in that game. Again, like nobody even talks about that matchup at all. The other kind of note, the producer for this, Sally Fertini, said there was a meeting right before halftime. And she says the idea was pitched to Justin, like Janet's stylist or somebody else was in the room, kind of went along with it, and the mistake happened. So I don't know. I'm curious to maybe what your theory is, how this all played out. Was it something that was planned from the very beginning? Did CBS have a hand in it, or was those two kind of doing their own thing?
I think that these two somehow, whether either directly talking to each other or their reps talking to each other, I think each of them knew what was going to happen. They executed it, and they didn't think the blowback was going to be as bad as it was.
That's kind of where I lean too. I think they either brought it up to the TV and they were like, probably shouldn't do that, or maybe like the TV, like the production was like, hey, let's try these things at the end, but probably kind of blew it off like, let's just go a different direction. And I think those two were like, hey, let's do this. This is like a bigger deal. Let's go ahead and try to see if we can pull this off. And think they kind of had it planned and executed. So I don't know. I think those two knew. I don't know. I kind of lean towards the television broadcast did not know what was coming.
I agree.
But maybe I'm crazy.
And look, I agree with that. I don't think the television broadcast knew. And look, if they wanted to make a mark, and they did their job, because outside of the Prince performing Purple Rain in the Rain in Miami, this is the most legendary, or well-known, I should say, halftime show, I think. Yeah,
and Justin Timberlake, this kind of put him on the map too. I mean, he was obviously a big deal with NSYNC and kind of starting his solo career, but I mean, he's exploded since then. And yeah, I mean, it was a pretty big deal. I don't think it's, looking back on it, it's not a huge deal to me. It doesn't seem very significant compared to what we're used to now, but in the moment, man, it was pretty wild indeed. So that was the wardrobe malfunction, Nipplegate, as they call it now. Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake, 2004. Man, 16, almost 17th anniversary of that coming up, Mike, for the Super Bowl this weekend. Pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, crazy. And what's even nuts is that halftime show led into one of the more exciting second halves in Super Bowl history.
Oh no, we're still talking about, did you see the nipple? Like I didn't see it in real time. Did you see when it happened?
I did not. No.
Yeah. We've seen it now. In all its glory. All right, let's close it out, Mike. This episode of Distant Replay Podcast, this mini-so, we appreciate you listening. Again, hit subscribe. Rate, review. Everywhere you listen to podcasts, you'll find us. Plus on YouTube as well, Twitter and Instagram, and distantreplaypodcast.com.